Hi, I'm Todd Madison, and happy holidays. We may have met at numerous school-related events in the last decade. If we haven't met, I've been involved in education activism in Oceanside and the rest of the state for some time now. I'm making this today because we have a crisis in education in our country, in our state, and most certainly in Oceanside. An article today quoted a professor saying, "We do not have our hair on fire the way it needs to be about this," and that's the truth. Oceanside Unified has made no impact on academic performance and is now facing demands to increase spending in ways that have little or nothing to do with improving education. If you're a parent in Oceanside, you need to know this. And your friends need to know this too, so please pass it on. I've spent some time working in our system with our district, and I thought I'd take a few minutes to provide a bit of background on the current situation as well as some suggestions on how we could make the education of our kids the district's priority instead. The latest academic performance data is miserable. Here in Oceanside, the latest Smarter Balance testing shows almost 60% of our kids are not proficient in English and over 70% not proficient in math. That's 70% of our kids are not proficient in math. Those numbers have always been bad for Oceanside. Since SBAC testing began in 2015, we've only seen more than 50% of our kids proficient in anything once. And that was in 2021 when the test was changed for COVID. Performance has gone downhill since. We have a lot of great teachers in Oceanside. The fact that the district gets an F in education is not their fault. That is more a problem of district leadership and their priorities. This is not just a problem, this is a real crisis. It's been going on for a long time. The district and the board have been talking about it forever. We need to actually do something about it, not just talk. I spent years as a parent representative on our local control accountability committee, the district's budget committee. I also helped lead our district parent advisory committee, hearing directly from parents every month for years. Those parents were pretty clear on what they thought should be done to improve education. In 2017 and 2018, I was actually able to get the district to ask parents what should be done with education funding. Imagine that. Let's ask parents what they think should be done. Craziness. Smaller class sizes was the clear answer. And teachers would agree. Classes are harder to manage these days. Teachers have more things on their to-do lists added by administration. Smaller classes would be more manageable and allow them to do more of what they really want to do for our kids. Help those that need more help and provide better education for all. Ask any teacher about that. Despite smaller class sizes being the clear preference of parents and beneficial to teachers, nothing has been done. In fall of 2018, the average class size at OUSD was 27.56 kids. As of the beginning of the current year, that number was 27.57 kids. 0.01 kids difference. That's no change at all. What has changed? The amount of money our district is spending. Huge COVID mitigation funding and massive increases in tax revenue have led to skyrocketing per student spending. In 2018, the district spent $12,600 per student. In 2023, that had grown to $23,000. That's almost doubling in just 5 years. With an average class size of 27 kids, that gives the district $600,000 per classroom to give our kids the best possible education. $600,000. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of money to me. Seems like there should be some money in there to do what parents want. But we don't see that happening, do we? So the question is, what the hell is happening with that money? Because it certainly isn't being used to improve the education of our kids. That's even more important now because the meteoric increase in spending is going to come to an end. The state is projecting red ink ahead. Just recently, the government projected a need to cut $68 billion from the budget, including $21 billion from this current year. One of the leading options, cutting education. A $4.3 billion cut is almost guaranteed because it's automatic, but other options under consideration could increase those cuts to tens of billions. That will certainly impact funding for education here in Oceanside. Oceanside Unified is also projecting continued enrollment declines, almost 500 kids a year. That's over half an elementary school. Since education is funded based on average daily attendance, that will certainly impact future funding. We have good reserves right now. largely thanks to the bump in revenue from COVID funding and huge tax revenues in the last couple of years. But that's pretty rare in Oceanside recent history. The combination of lower funding and lower enrollment in the future could be devastating to our kids and also to staff. In the past, revenue shortfalls have resulted in cuts to programs for kids and cuts to staff. In September 2019, the district was on the state's bankruptcy watch list and cut one of the last remaining bus routes to the poor Latino neighborhoods of Crown Heights to save $144,000 a year out of a $200 million budget. Then they gave themselves bonus raises 2 months later. And during the Great Recession, large numbers of staff were given pink slips routinely. The first laid off were typically the newest, most enthusiastic employees, people who were largely working directly with our kids. Now is not the time to spend down those reserves, to spend money just because we have it. Yet that's what our local unions are asking the district to do. The Oceanside Teachers Association is demanding a 12% bonus raise. That extra raise would likely be applied to administrators also through the Me Too raise. Those administrators, supposedly negotiating on our kids' behalf, could make themselves as much as another $35,000 a year in total compensation. The total for all groups could ultimately cost the district over $24 million a year. And of course, that bonus raise would create even larger increases in the future, since a percentage of a higher number is an even higher number. I call these bonus raises because that's what they are. Raises on top of regular raises built into the normal salary schedules. Almost all OUSD employees receive a normal, regular, periodic raise according to the salary schedule they're on. That normal raise typically averages about 3 to 3.5% a year, which is almost always greater than inflation. In the last decade, even with last year's 5.6%, inflation has averaged about 3% per year in San Diego County. If we were in a situation where our teachers were tremendously poorly paid, on the verge of having to survive on cat food, perhaps an outsized raise might be justifiable. Let's take a look at that. We have actual compensation data obtained with a legal public records request direct from the district's own records. Those records are available for you to look at Transparent California. We see from that in 2022, the median total compensation of a full-time certificated employee was $128,651. That's $128,651 for a full-time certificated employee. Administrators, who will also be in line for this raise, had a median total compensation of $168,111. $168,111. Now, total compensation includes the cost of benefits. We hear that doesn't put food on the table, but retirement contributions most certainly put food on the table later in life. Ask anyone living in retirement. And I don't think anyone thinks a good health care plan for their family is not important. But to be clear, excluding benefits, we see the median total pay only of a certificated employee was $95,845. That's excluding benefits, $95,845. For administrators, $128,706. With that, 2 teachers living in the same household would have a total gross income of over $190,000 a year. And what about the extra money teachers receive for retirement? We all know the teacher retirement plan is very nice. I'm happy it is. I think most people are. Teachers deserve to be well treated in retirement. But money put into your retirement on your behalf is compensation just as much as what goes into your bank account. It certainly counts. In private industry, you and I typically receive contributions to our retirement from our employer of about 6% of our pay for Social Security and 4% as a 401k match. That's a total of over 10% of our pay. Teachers receive a total contribution to their retirement from their employer of 29% per year. That's 19% of their salary more than you and me. With an income of $95,845, that's almost $19,000 a year extra every year. If private employers gave us that much into our 401k with an average return, we would end up with over $3 million at 65. If you don't think that counts as compensation, ask someone 65 years old right now how they would like to have a 401k worth $3 million. If you or I wanted to have matching benefits, we'd have to take $19,000 from our paycheck to put into our retirement ourselves. To have the same $96,000 in gross pay that an OUSD teacher has, we'd have to make $115,000 a year, so we could put away $19K and still have that money left over. For two private employees to equal the spending ability of two teachers, they'd have to have a total household income of $230,000 a year. Wouldn't that be nice? How does that compare to your family income? According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the median private employee in our county that has education comparable to a teacher made $91,902. That means if a teacher came out of school and used their degree to do anything other than teach, likely they would make about $23,000 less than they make right now. Now, I'm happy we can afford to pay our teachers well. I'm very happy about that. They're great people, they do a job that's essential, they take care of our kids. I'm glad we can pay them $23,000 more than they would make doing something else with their education. I want them to be rewarded for teaching. I would never advocate cutting their pay or even cutting back on the normal salary schedule increases. I have no problem with what we pay teachers right now and no problem with the regular salary schedule increases that exceed inflation. But given the things we need to do with our education dollars to actually improve education, I do have a problem with adding bonus raises on top of normal increases. Shouldn't we be spending that money on things that actually improve the education of our kids? I've often heard that giving teachers more money is spending on the education of our kids. Normal human nature often makes people think more for me is the way to solve any problem. It's a great theory, but not something that happens in reality. In the past decade, teacher pay in our district has risen dramatically. From 2012 to 2022, pay and benefits have risen over 1.5 times faster than inflation. Meanwhile, academic performance has stayed flat or even declined. If there's any evidence that paying people more money to do the same job results in improvement, I haven't seen it. Part of the negotiation now involves changes to the healthcare premium contribution by employees. Right now, almost all employees can receive healthcare insurance for free, no matter whether just for themselves or including family. The district would change that to a plan where employees continue to receive free healthcare insurance, but most contribute something for additional coverages, just like most private employees. The Oceanside Teachers Association has put out their own explainer on this. According to their video, by 25-26, the highest projection, current employees on the maximum family plan would pay $2,891 per year or $240 a month. That employee contribution would be less than 10% of the total cost of the plan to the district. New employees starting after 2023 would be on a different plan with higher contributions. Their own coverage would still be free, but the same family plan would cost $7,849 per year or about $650 a month. As a private worker, I'm sure you all realize what a tremendous deal free for everyone is. Who wouldn't want that? And how great a deal it is to be totally free for the employee and only $240 a month for full family coverage, for a plan with better terms than even the Platinum plan on the healthcare exchange. Yes, $240 a month is not free, but it's still a very good deal. Far better than any private employee plan I've seen. If we look at data from the Kaiser Health Foundation, we see in private industry the average employee pays twice that, about $547 a month, for coverage with an average deductible of over $1,700. New OUSD employees would pay a bit more than that, but if we compare coverages, copays, and deductibles, they get more than the average private worker for that money. So, as I've said, I think our teachers are fairly paid right now. I'm glad for them. We often hear teachers should not be penalized for choosing teaching as a career, and that's clearly not the case here. I'm fine with them making tens of thousands of dollars more teaching than they would doing anything else, along with all the great benefits for retirement and healthcare. Combine that with a work schedule that's 633 hours a year less than you or I would consider full-time, and the power to determine the school schedule without including parent input, that seems to be a pretty good deal to me. Our teachers are great people. I'm happy to treat them well. But if we truly have extra money, maybe now is the time to use that to actually improve the education of kids? If we take the full 12% bonus raise demand from the union and add in the inevitable cost of a May 2 raise for administrators, the total cost will be about $19 million a year. What if we admitted that making the equivalent of $115,000 a year with regular increases higher than inflation is a fair deal for teachers, and looked at what we could do with that money that helped kids learn and teachers teach. We could take 90% of that 19 million and put it into something teachers and parents want: smaller class sizes. We could immediately lower the average OUSD class size by about 7 kids to about 20 kids per class. Just how great would that be for both kids and teachers? We hear a lot from the union about the need to pay well to attract the best to teach in Oceanside. I agree. Let's actually do that in a significant way. What if we put some money into increasing starting teacher pay? With a starting rate of about $50,000 a year last year, if we put just 2% of that $19 million into starting pay only, we could raise that by almost $6,000 a year. What new teacher would not like to make $6,000 more per year? Can I get a show of hands on that? We also hear a lot from teachers about the real burden they bear buying supplies for their classrooms. What parent has not heard the pitch for Post-its and wet wipes? Why do teachers have to buy their own supplies to do their job? What if we put some of that money directly into classrooms? With 4% of that $19 million, we could give each teacher about $350 a year to use to buy classroom supplies. Why don't we do that? Wouldn't that benefit both kids and teachers? These ideas are what we call win-win-win. Parents win, teachers win, and most importantly, our kids win. So now you have the facts. What are the odds that anything like this is going to be done? Slim to none. In the November board meeting, we saw the union president speak to the board, urging them to consider the union their first priority. The nerve. Not our kids, not the education of those kids, but the union. Here's a clip of that talk.
Our concerns now are instead about being prioritized with your spending. We want to be the first priority for how your money is spent.
That is what the union thinks is important about education. Straight to you from the union president. That may sound reminiscent of a quote from a different union president of the past who said, "When school children start paying union dues, that's when I'll start representing the interests of school children." Apparently they learned that in the University of Union Presidents. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? I think she got an A in that test. That will undoubtedly carry the day. It always does. Because our board is in their seats because the union put them there. The board doesn't have to pay attention to parents because most parents don't pay attention to the board. But you're watching this, so you do, right? You're a parent who pays attention to what our schools are doing and what the board is doing about it. Are you a parent who will stand up and demand that we spend education money on improving education, not improving the bank account of adults? Will you go to board meetings, speak at the podium, email the board and superintendent? Will you advocate for your kids? We all need to make it clear education and our kids should be the first priority of the district and board, not the bank accounts of special interests that pay for board trustee elections. Kids first, not adults. The district has made a good counterproposal. I think it's a solid start for negotiation. If the district has the best interests of our kids in mind, then we'll negotiate something that includes some of the things I've discussed here. Maybe even foregoing their own Me Too raise. Compromise a bit. Tell the union we need to treat teachers well, but also tell them now is the time to use their funding to benefit our kids and, most importantly, improve education. Isn't that what the school district is supposed to do, and isn't making that happen what we elect board members to do? Be part of the solution. Stand up and be heard. Thanks for listening. Happy holidays to all. Immediately following this, you'll see a list of links and sources for the data I've provided here. As my kids were taught by some great Oceanside teachers, we show our work. You're welcome to look through it and email me if you have any questions. Thanks again.